Welcome to the Geostrategic podcast.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we cut through the noise and deliver the essential strategic knowledge you need. Thank you for joining us for this crucial discussion. Something big is happening in Asia's skies, and the world's watching the Philippines. The Philippine Air Force is in advanced talks to buy South Korea's KF-21 Boramae, a fighter jet that could rewrite the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. This isn't just a weapons deal, it's a strategic turning point that could change how China, the US, and ASEAN play the game. So what makes the KF-21 so powerful, and why is Manila betting billions on it? Stay tuned, because this story is about to take flight.
Right. And our mission today really is to dig into the sources, understand the geostrategic angles here. Because like you said, this isn't just about buying some jets. It's potentially a marker for regional security, a test for South Korea's tech ambitions, and honestly, a huge step for Manila's own defense posture.
Okay, let's kick things off with the background. Why South Korea? I mean, it's pretty well known that Korea Aerospace Industries, KAI, is already Manila's go-to partner for air power, right?
Oh, absolutely. That relationship is solid. It's built primarily around the FA-50 light combat aircraft. The Philippines got their first batch of 12 back in 2014.
And they just ordered more recently.
Exactly. Another 12 units delivery starting early 2025. So this isn't just about transactions, it's about familiarity. They know KAI systems, they have the training, the support chains. It makes moving to something more advanced like the KF-21, it makes it a much smoother logical step.
But the FA-50, while capable, is more like a lead-in fighter. Maybe good for policing airspace. It's not really a deep strike deterrent. So spending billions suggests a bigger ambition, right? This must tie into their Horizon 3 modernization plan.
That's precisely the point. Horizon 3 is all about shifting gears. The current fleet, the FA-50s and, those really old OV-10 Broncos, they still fly. They just don't have the legs or the staying power, especially for the kind of challenges they face in the West Philippine Sea. So Horizon 3 calls for multi-role combat aircraft, MRFs. That means jets that can patrol way out, protect maritime zones, and, crucially, act as a credible deterrent against aggression. They need range, payload, advanced sensors, things the current fleet just doesn't offer.
And the talks seem to be moving quickly, especially after the KF-21 was shown off at ADEX 2025. What's KAI's angle here? Why push the Philippines for an early sale?
Well, for KAI, the Philippines looks like the ideal launch customer for export. Manila's need is obvious and urgent, the strategic location is critical, and that existing relationship greases the wheels, so to speak.
Less red tape.
Exactly. So the negotiations right now are intense. They're covering everything, the technical nitty-gritty, financing options, and something really important for Manila, industrial participation. Things like local maintenance, support, maybe even some assembly down the line. It's about partnership, not just a sale.
Okay, so given that urgency, particularly with the South China Sea situation, what exactly did KII build with this $7 billion KF-21 program? What can the Boramae, the young eagle, do that the FA-50 can't? Let's get into the tech.
The Boramae is really interesting. It's built as a 4.5 generation fighter, developed jointly by South Korea and Indonesia, though Indonesia's involvement has had its ups and downs. But the design goal was clear: bridge the gap.
Bridge the gap between what and what?
Between established fourth-gen fighters like the F-16 and the full-on fifth-gen stealth aircraft like the F-35.
So what does 4.5 generation actually mean for a pilot or for someone on the receiving end?
It means incorporating stealthy characteristics without the full, sometimes prohibitive cost and complexity of a true stealth design. The airframe uses a lot of composite materials, which helps reduce its radar cross-section, the RCS.
Making it harder to detect.
Right. The idea is to look smaller on radar, maybe more like a bird than a fighter jet. It also has advanced avionics active electronically scanned array radar, AESA, which is top tier, and really sophisticated network capabilities for better situational awareness.
That lower radar signature is definitely a plus. But what about raw performance? How does it stack up, especially thinking about potential adversaries in the region? What's the real leap in capability for the Philippine Air Force?
It's huge. First off, engines. 2 General Electric F414s. That gives it power, pushing it up to Mach 1.8. Can carry a significant payload and climb fast. Really important for intercepting threats quickly over the sea.
And the range. That seems critical for the Philippines' geography.
That's probably the single biggest operational improvement. We're talking an effective combat range over 1,000 kilometers. That allows for persistent patrols deep into those disputed maritime areas, something they simply couldn't dream of doing effectively with the FA-50.
And the teeth, the weapons. This gives them beyond visual range combat capability, BVR, for the first time, doesn't it?
Exactly. BVR is the game changer. That's what shifts you from just policing your airspace to actively deterring sophisticated threats. It's slated to carry European missiles like the Meteor and IRIS-T, plus the American AIM-120D.
So they can engage targets like China's J-10s or J-16s from far away.
Precisely. Long before the visual fight even begins. The initial version, Block 1, is focused purely on air-to-air. Block 2 down the road will add air-to-ground capabilities and potentially an internal weapons bay for even better stealth characteristics.
Okay, sounds impressive. But why the KF-21 specifically? Why not go for something proven like the latest F-16V from the US, or maybe the Swedish Gripen E? Price must be a factor.
Price is definitely a big part of it. The estimated cost, around $70 to $85 million per unit, puts it in a competitive spot, sort of a middle ground, maybe cheaper than a high-spec F-16V, potentially competitive with Gripen, depending on the package.
But you mentioned logistics earlier being key.
Yeah, I think that's the real tiebreaker here. The Philippines already has maintenance crews, supply lines, and training pipelines geared towards KAI thanks to the FA-50. Sticking with the South Korean platform means lower lifecycle costs, less risk, and leveraging that existing infrastructure. Starting fresh with an American or European system would mean building all that support from scratch. That's expensive and time-consuming.
Okay, let's zoom out then. This is the core of our deep dive. The geostrategic ripples. If this deal goes through, the Philippines gets an aircraft that can, for the first time maybe, actually contest airspace in the South China Sea. How does that shift the balance?
It shifts it significantly. Think about strategic locations like Second Thomas Shoal or Scarborough Shoal. Suddenly, the Philippines has an asset that can credibly patrol and defend the airspace around them.
With BVR missiles and better sensors.
Exactly. It means it can potentially go toe-to-toe with China's J-10C or J-16 on a more level playing field. It complicates Beijing's calculations. It forces them to account for a more potent air threat than they've faced from Manila before.
So, how does that affect China's behavior? We hear a lot about their gray zone tactics. Does this new capability push back against that?
It certainly makes those gray zone operations riskier and more complicated for Beijing. You know, those tactics using Coast Guard vessels aggressively, swarming areas with fishing militia, subtle blockades they rely on, staying below the threshold of military conflict.
Right, avoiding a direct fight.
But when the potential response involves fast jets arriving quickly from further away, armed with BVR missiles, well, the potential for escalation goes up. China has to be more cautious. The cost of pushing too hard increases. Air denial becomes harder.
That makes sense. But bringing in a South Korean jet, does that complicate things with allies like the US, Japan, Australia? Interoperability is always a big buzzword.
That's a valid point, and there might be some initial friction, technologically speaking. Integrating a new platform always takes effort. But strategically, I think the allies see the bigger picture. A stronger, more capable Philippines contributes to regional stability.
And for Manila.
For Manila, it also offers a degree of, let's say, supply chain diversification. Relying less solely on the U.S. means potentially less vulnerability to shifting American political winds or strict export controls like ITAR, which we should probably touch on.
Definitely. This also feels like a big move for South Korea itself, beyond just KAI selling planes. It plays into their larger foreign policy goals, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This is South Korea's global pivotal state policy in action. They're projecting influence not necessarily through military bases, but through becoming a key provider of advanced technology and defense equipment.
A different kind of power projection.
Right. Supplying a frontline state like the Philippines with a cutting-edge fighter demonstrates Seoul's commitment to regional security and positions them as a major player in the global defense market, potentially chipping away at the long-standing dominance of Western suppliers.
And we mentioned Manila wants more than just jets. They're pushing for economic benefits too. Technology transfer.
Yes, that's a huge part of the negotiations. The Philippines wants to develop its own aerospace industry in line with their Defense Industrial Act. They're looking for training, technology sharing, industrial offsets.
And KAI sees an opportunity there.
KAI likely sees the Philippines as a potential foothold, maybe even a future regional maintenance, repair, and overhaul MRO hub for the KF-21, assuming other ASEAN nations buy it. That means high-skilled jobs for the Philippines and locks them into KAI's ecosystem.
Which brings us to the potential domino effect. If the Philippines signs on, becoming the first export customer, what happens next in the region?
It sends a powerful signal. It validates the KF-21 program and South Korean aerospace tech on the world stage. You can bet other ASEAN countries modernizing their air forces. Thailand, Malaysia, maybe Vietnam down the line are watching this very, very closely.
So a successful deal could really open the floodgates for KAI in Southeast Asia.
It could. If the Philippines integrates the Boramae successfully and finds it effective, it becomes a strong endorsement, potentially leading other nations to choose KAI platforms over Western or Russian alternatives. It could really establish South Korea in that mid-tier fighter market.
Okay, it sounds like there's a lot of momentum. But the KF-21 isn't fully operational everywhere yet, is it?
Oh.
What are the main hurdles still standing in the way of finalizing this deal?
There are a few key ones. First, the jet itself is still technically in the final stages of qualification testing with the South Korean Air Force, so it's cutting edge, but also, very new.
Any infrastructure challenges for the Philippines?
Oh, definitely. Operating advanced twin-engine fighters requires significant upgrades. We're talking about things like hardened, possibly explosion-proof hangars, longer runways at key air bases, larger fuel storage facilities. That's a big investment beyond the planes themselves.
And the American connection, you mentioned ITAR.
Right, that's a big one. The engines, the GE F414s, are U.S. made. That means the sale needs U.S. government approval under the International Traffic in Arms Regulations, ITAR. So Washington effectively holds a veto card, adding a layer of diplomatic complexity.
And KAI's own production capacity. Can they build it fast enough?
That's another factor. KAI's production lines are currently focused on fulfilling orders for South Korea and Indonesia. Manila needs to secure a firm early slot in that production schedule to get the jets in a timely manner.
So, assuming they navigate these hurdles, what's a realistic timeline? When might we actually see Philippine pilots flying Boramaes?
Well, the current buzz suggests they're aiming for a Memorandum of Understanding, an MU, maybe in early 2026. If a formal contract follows quickly...
Deliveries wouldn't be immediate, though.
No, not at all. We're probably looking at first deliveries around 2029 or 2030, with the force reaching initial operational readiness maybe by the end of the decade. But the training pipeline would likely start sooner, perhaps sending Filipino pilots and crews to Korea well before the jets arrive.
So wrapping this up, this potential acquisition really marks a major transformation for the Philippines. It's moving away from relying on older, often secondhand Western equipment towards becoming a regional actor with genuine, modern strategic capabilities, a real step towards self-reliance, partnered with the new key player in South Korea.
It truly is a landmark moment potentially unfolding in Asia's defense landscape. It signals Manila might be ending its era of, let's be frank, relying on cast-off air power. And it leaves us with a big question to ponder. If this deal succeeds, does the KF-21 Boramae's export journey create a new template for defense cooperation within the region itself? Could it significantly shift the market away from the traditional Western suppliers, at least for these kinds of mid-generation fighters, and subtly reshape the alliances across the Indo-Pacific? That's the really fascinating strategic tension to watch.
A very provocative thought, and one that will surely echo through the region in the coming years. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful. Please do check out our other episodes wherever you listen. We'll talk to you next time.
If you found this discussion valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to the Geostrategic podcast for more in-depth analysis on topics that shape our world. Stay informed, stay ahead, and stay tuned for the next episode.